My name is Minnie. It's been 4 months since my world came crashing down, yet the pain still lingers, sharp and raw. I'm okay now, better than okay, but it took a long and arduous journey to get here. It all started with a simple text message that shattered my illusions and sent me spiraling into a world of lies and betrayal. I'm sharing an apartment with someone from work. Don't make it weird. Those words echoed in my head, a constant reminder of the trust that had been broken. I met Ethan on a dating app 2 years ago. He was charming, funny, and we had so much in common. We bonded over our love for hiking and terrible horror movies, and I thought we had a solid, dependable relationship. We didn't live together because we both valued our independence, but we spent 3 or 4 nights a week at each other's places. It was a healthy, balanced relationship, or so I thought. About 6 months ago, Ethan started complaining about his rent. His landlord had raised it twice in under 2 years, and he was paying nearly $2,000 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment that barely fit his furniture. I offered to help him look for a new place, but he always deflected. I'm not ready to live with a girlfriend yet, he said. It's not about you. I just need to be sure. I respected his decision, or at least I told myself I did. But the complaints kept coming, and I started to feel like I was walking on eggshells around him. One night, while we were watching a movie, he mentioned that a coworker was also apartment hunting. Maybe we'll get a 2-bedroom together, he said casually. I paused the movie and asked him if it was a guy or a girl. He hesitated for a fraction of a second before saying it was a woman, but that it was totally not like that. She was in a serious relationship, practically engaged. I tried to ignore the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, but it wouldn't go away. Over the next few weeks, Ethan talked about apartment tours and bad locations, and I started to feel like I was being left out of his life. Then, 6 weeks ago, he texted me and said he'd found a place and was signing the lease the next week. It cuts my rent almost in half, he said. I congratulated him and asked if I could see it sometime. He said sure. But after he moved, everything changed. Texts took hours to respond to, and plans got cancelled. Excuses piled up, and I started to feel like I was being pushed away. Then, one day, I received the text that would change everything, don't make it weird. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the text message in my head. The tone was defensive, preemptive, like he was closing a door before I'd even reached for the handle. Why was he saying this? We'd already talked about the apartment, and I'd already said I was fine with it. The next morning, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I scrolled back through our old messages and searched for the address of his new apartment. I found it, but there was no official documentation, no lease photo or paperwork. That struck me as odd, because Ethan had always been so transparent about these things. By lunchtime, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to his new apartment, telling myself I just wanted to see the place and picture his new life. The building was nicer than I expected, modern and glass-fronted, with a lobby that smelled faintly of eucalyptus and money. This wasn't a cut-my-rent-in-half kind of place. I parked across the street and waited, hating myself for being so paranoid. 20 minutes later, the doors slid open, and Ethan stepped out with a woman. She was in her mid-30s, confident and well-dressed. They laughed about something I couldn't hear, and then, almost without thinking, Ethan rested his hand on her lower back as they walked. It wasn't overt, but it was familiar. They got into the same car and drove away. I sat there, watching them go, feeling like my heart was being ripped out of my chest. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. How could he do this to me? How could he lie to me for so long? When I got home, I crossed a line I never thought I would. I called the property management office and asked for the lease details. I told them I just wanted to confirm delivery information, but I didn't lie well. The woman on the phone was polite and efficient, and she confirmed the unit number. Then she asked, "Is this for both leaseholders or just one?" My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Both," I said. She read out two names, Ethan's and hers. A joint lease. Not roommates on separate agreements. Not a cost-saving arrangement. A couple. I hung up the phone and sat in silence, feeling like the world was crashing down around me. I couldn't believe what I'd just learned. Ethan had been lying to me for months, and he'd been living with another woman behind my back. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I found the lease template online and used a skip tracing site to find the emergency contact number for the woman. I forwarded the lease details to her, along with the address and unit number, but I didn't include an explanation or a signature. I just wanted to force Ethan to have a conversation with me, to explain what was going on. I turned off my phone and tried to sleep, but I couldn't. All I could think about was Ethan and the woman, and how they'd been lying to me. When I turned my phone back on the next morning, I had 16 missed calls. 12 were from Ethan, and 4 were from an unknown number. The first voicemail was from Ethan, and it was full of fury and disbelief. "What the hell did you do, Minnie? Why would you contact her family? That's completely out of line. You had no right." The next few voicemails were even worse, full of accusations and panic. His voice was cracking, and I could tell he was desperate. The unknown number had left one voicemail. It was a woman's voice, calm and measured. "Hello. My name is Mrs. Thompson. I'm calling because you contacted me earlier today regarding my daughter's living situation. I believe we need to speak." I called her back, my hands shaking. She answered on the first ring. "Thank you for calling," she said. "I'll be direct because I think that's what we both deserve. You're dating Ethan, correct?" "Yes," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "For 2 years." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "My daughter has been with Ethan for 8 months, she said carefully. He proposed 3 weeks ago, and she said yes. They've been living together for about 6 weeks. I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Ethan had been engaged to another woman while he was still dating me. He'd been lying to me for months, and he'd been living a double life. "I'm sorry," I said. "I think there's been a mistake." "I wish there had been," she replied. "He told us he'd been dating someone from work, that it had gotten serious quickly. He had no idea he wasn't the only one." She went on to tell me how they'd met, how their relationship had developed, and how Ethan had proposed. She told me how he'd been bringing her daughter to family dinners and how they'd been planning their future together. It was like a knife in my heart. I listened to her, feeling numb. I couldn't believe that the man I'd loved for 2 years had been lying to me for so long. I felt like a fool, like I'd been blind to the signs. When we hung up the phone, Ethan's calls were still coming in. I didn't answer. Instead, I texted him once, "I know everything. Don't contact me again." He called immediately, but I declined. Then came the messages, "Please let me explain. It's not what you think. I love you." I blocked him. 3 days later, I received an email from the woman. The subject line read, "I think we need to talk." She laid out everything, screenshots, photos, a picture of the ring on her finger. She told me that Ethan had told her I was an ex who wouldn't let go, but that her mother hadn't believed him. She'd pushed her to verify things, and that's how she'd found out the truth. We spoke on the phone for over an hour, comparing timelines and filling in the gaps. She told me that she'd thought she was getting all of Ethan, but that it turned out she was only getting 40% of his time and 100% of the lies. Neither of us cried. The shock had burned past that. After that, things got worse before they got better. Ethan's version of the story started to spread, and some of our mutual friends believed him. He told them that I'd become controlling, that I'd gotten jealous when he moved in with a friend from work for safety, and that I'd harassed him and his roommate. He even said he was considering a restraining order. I was devastated. I couldn't believe that he was lying about me, that he was trying to turn our friends against me. But I didn't give up. I reached out to 2 of our mutual friends and asked them to meet me in person. We sat at a quiet cafe, and I showed them everything, the lease details, the timestamps, the emails, the screenshots from the woman, the voicemail from her mother. They stared at me in silence, their eyes wide with shock. "She told us you isolated her," one of them said finally. "That she was scared to leave." I looked her in the eye. "Did I ever stop Ethan from seeing you?" I asked. "No," she said. "Did he ever cancel plans because of me?" "No." The story collapsed under its own weight, and they apologized. They said they'd been horrified once they saw the facts, and they promised to set the record straight where they could. But not everyone came back. Some people decided it was easier to believe the version they'd heard first, and others just didn't want the mess. I lost friends I'd thought were solid, and I learned that proximity doesn't always equal loyalty. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived in the mail. It was handwritten, 6 pages long. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. It was a maze of contradictions, apologies tangled with excuses, remorse undercut by justification. Ethan wrote about being overwhelmed, about getting caught up, about loving us both, about never intending to hurt anyone. "I hope someday you can forgive me," he wrote. What we had was real. I folded the pages and put them in a drawer. I didn't need his apologies. I needed closure, and I knew that walking away was the only real answer. A month later, I ran into Ethan by accident at a coffee shop. I was picking up an order, and we locked eyes. He looked thinner, tired, like someone who hadn't slept well in weeks. He followed me outside and asked me for 2 minutes of my time. I stopped and looked at him. "You got engaged to someone else while we were together," I said. "You lived with her. You built a life with her." That wasn't confusion. That was choice. He had no answer. "Did you ever actually love me?" I asked. "I did," he said. "I still don't," I said. "Don't finish that sentence." I got in my car and drove away. He didn't follow. It's been 4 months since then, and I'm finally starting to heal. I've spoken to the woman a few times since that first call, not often, not emotionally, more like 2 people who survived the same wreck and occasionally check in to confirm the other made it out alive. She transferred to a different city, took a job offer she hadn't originally planned on just to put physical space between herself and the life she thought she was building. I started dating again, cautiously. On the first date I went on, I told the truth early, not as a confession, not as a trauma dump, just context why I might be slow to trust, why I pay attention to patterns now. He appreciated the honesty, and we've been seeing each other for about 6 weeks. No rush, no illusions. Sometimes I still think about it, the signs I minimized, the moments I excused, the discomfort I talked myself out of because I didn't want to be difficult. But mostly, I've learned something simple and hard. When someone tells you not to make something weird, it's usually because it already is. There are no secret apartments now, no mysterious roommates, no parallel lives running on separate schedules, just honesty. I kept the letter, not because it gave me closure, but because it reminds me that closure doesn't always come with apologies. Sometimes it comes in 6 pages of excuses that make it clear walking away was the only real answer. I'm okay now, better than okay.